Welcome, everyone. Another episode of tonight's USF Cougar Football History Show. I'm your host, Chad Birger. Tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the 2016 season and do a little bit of a recap with some of the guys who played during that season. So I have a few of those guys with me right now, and so we'll just go around the room right now and introduce ourselves. Tosin, I don't know if you want to start.
Yeah, I'll start off. How's it going, guys? My name is Tosin Adedeji. I played on the 2012 to 2016 team with these guys here.
Awesome.
Nate? Yep, and I'm Nate Lukes. I played from 2012 to 2016 as well, linebacker, and so was on the 2016 team. So
obviously I said that already, but that's okay. Jess, you want to start?
Just reiterating it.
All right. Jess P. Williams. Also played 2012 to 2016.
Were you on the 2016 team or?
Barely. Barely on it.
Matt Young from 2013 to 2017.
Oh, young boy.
Jeez.
Young boy.
Richard Nacho Garacio. I played 2012 to 2016 as well. I use the term play loosely. I was on the team. I didn't really play much.
And you put out the greatest highlight video of all time.
Yeah, that kind of took a mind of its own, really. I had a really good PR team with Nate Lukes, headed by him. He tweeted at Ellen DeGeneres every day for like 3 months. We never got on the show, but that counts at the end of the day.
It was close, though.
Yeah.
Got on Football Scoop, though.
Yep.
That was big.
So you guys mentioned, like, a lot of you played from 2012, 2013, in that range, when USF was kind of building a Division II presence. Obviously 2012 was the first year of Division II football in USF history, and so you guys were able to kind of see how, you were able to build a little bit. The 2014 season was really, really successful for the Cougars. Unfortunately, there was like a lack of playoff spots, and so the Cougs missed the playoffs that year. Went into 2015 with some pretty high expectations, and then kind of had a little bit of a disappointment towards the end of the season. Ended up kind of backdooring into the playoffs, and just about snuck one out down in Arkadelphia at the end of the 2015 season. So you guys were able to kind of build up that program a little bit during those years. And it was kind of leading into 2016 where, a lot of the guys were seniors. You played together for, 3 or 4 years. And it just turned out that was going to be the year of high expectations. And so, I don't know if you guys had a whole lot of those expectations at fall camp or going into fall camp at the beginning of that season.
Yeah, I would say.
Oh, go ahead, Nate.
Well, we did have some big shoes to fill, though. I mean, John Tidwell, Solomon, some of those guys on defense, the linebacking core, that was, Cam Ostrom, Carter Allers, Clint Wilson. So, I mean, we had some pretty big shoes to fill, at least on the defensive side. But
yeah, I was going to say, like, going into that year, our expectations didn't really change from a couple years before. It's always to, win the conference championship, win that national championship. That's always been what we talked about. So I guess our focus wasn't really changed that much, but I think what was changed was being the leaders, trying to take a more leadership role. Like Nate mentioned, John Tidwell, and Solo and all those guys being leaders. And we kind of like were upcoming leaders, but wasn't really up there yet. So I think that our senior year was our chance to really step up. In that sense, but the goal has always been, for USF with this great history is to, win and just keep winning.
Yeah. So you guys mentioned, you lost a few guys from the 2015 season. I don't know, like, if you guys had expected, the starting lineup to come in and turn out how it is. I know, Matt, you ended up starting at safety the first, part of the year there, and played quite a bit of defense. You had previously played offense a few years prior to that, and so you were kind of like a dual threat. along those lines. So did everything kind of work out the way the positions were expected to?
Somewhat. Just tried to get on the field and tried to help the team as much as possible, whatever position that was. Making the transition to safety in 2015, it was all right. It was up and down, definitely some tough spots, just playing a new position. Then going in 2016, getting more of a hang of it and feeling more comfortable in the position. Had a couple shoulder injuries, cut my season a little short, but it was just a blast to be around the guys like here. Yeah. That was fun.
Yeah. Rich, I want to talk to you a little bit. So you obviously had a really talented group on the offensive line that year. Do you remember who the starters were for the offensive line?
Yeah, so it was Jesse Springer at right tackle, and I might get that wrong, tackle sides, and then you had Terry Huber at guard, Trevor Westcott at center, Antonio Green at guard, and then of course Trey Pipkins on the outside on the other side. It might have been Terry and Trey. Yeah, it was Terry and Trey that played together because Terry would always talk trash to Trey. Don't mess with this, that type of thing. Your common little senior talking to the younger guy. But no, I mean, as far as respectively talking about different levels, I mean, you can argue that was one of the best O-lines I've ever seen, personally speaking. Just the way, I mean, obviously they played together for 3 years. I think they all started for 3 years straight, if I'm not mistaken. But just the way they gelled and kind of complimented each other was pretty unbelievable. I mean, obviously you had Trevor in the middle making all the calls. He was like an encyclopedia of the playbook. It was unbelievable. He knew every call. He knew more than some of the coaches did. Not to take a shot at the coaches or anything like that, but he was that smart and he knew the playbook that well. And then you had, Antonio Green, he's out there knocking people out, a little more of a risk taker in terms of, impact blocking, things like that. But you had guys around him that knew how he was going to play and how they can help him and make, so that was the thing is everybody just gelled so well. I mean, not to mention their physical attributes, everybody could get the job done really well. They're all athletic. And I mean, it showed. I think at one point Luke was, 11 yards per carry or something ridiculous. I mean, he was a great runner in his own right, but it's nice when you don't have to touch anybody till the safety. So,
yeah, we'll talk about some of those stats here in a little bit, but yeah, it was kind of crazy how well that offense kind of gelled. The offensive line started up front, and then obviously you mentioned Luke Papillion at quarterback. You had wide receivers coming back that year, a few seniors. You had Brady Rose, Josh Angulo, Kyle Athman was in that mix, and then Kyle Gronewig was a junior that year. And so, some pretty decent talent and speed on the outside. And then Max Mickey kind of broke out that season a little bit, and we'll talk about him a little bit as we go on here too. So kind of neat to see you guys, the very first game of the year. It was a Thursday night, September 1st at St. Cloud's. Now, I believe this is probably the game that, made St. Cloud decide to just drop their whole football program. But you guys went to St. Cloud, and at the end of the first half, the score was 14-7. USF was ahead, and so I don't know, like at halftime, what the talk was like in the locker room or what was going on.
I know offensively, at least, going into the year, we knew what we had on offense. A ton of seniors everywhere, a ton of really experienced players. So for us, more than anything, it was just kind of finding the groove of the game again. It's obviously game speed's different from practice speed. Even with scrimmages and things like that, it's always going to pick up a little bit in games. So just kind of finding our groove, trusting what we were doing and just staying on top of things with that. Because like I said, we knew what we had. We knew how talented we were. We knew how good we could be. So it was just staying patient and just attacking everything.
Well, in football too, I mean, the first game of the year is always the most difficult, to be honest, because you don't really know what you have as a team. I mean, you're only playing against each other for, 4 weeks there in fall camp, and then you go out and finally get to test your mettle. So, I mean, 14-7, yeah, I think they had a decent team, but we had a better team, and we showed it in the second half. But like Rich is saying, I mean, we knew what we had on offense, we knew what we had on defense and special teams, and just the depth of the team. And I mean, it just came together in the second half, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Speaking
So,
of
like,
oh, go ahead. I was saying, going off Jazz, I guess one of the biggest difference we had in 2016 that we didn't have for the years prior as much as like we just had so much depth, like Jess said, like everywhere, like
Absolutely.
on the entire roster, with like 2-3 guys deep in each position that could play for us. So that was huge.
Yeah, I mean,
right. I was going to mention that Nate, you started at linebacker.
yeah.
But you had guys rotating in all game, right?
Yeah, we had, especially at linebacker, I think that was a huge difference, was that like we were able to cycle people in and there was like no drop off as far as like, people knowing schematics and things like that. So, I mean, that was huge. Absolutely. Because, I mean, the seasons are long, and especially at linebacker, you're taking hits and you're giving hits, whatever. And so having the ability to not take 100% of the snaps, that goes a long way. And I mean, we ended up going into the playoffs, and like that makes a huge difference, I think.
Yeah, keeping it fresh. Who were some of those other guys that played linebacker with you, Nate?
Connor Shep, and then Mailing, Michael Mailing, which he was a crazy dude. And then and then we had who else did we have, Jess?
Yeah, so it was
Campiotti,
Kyle Campiotti, Mailing, Connor Shep, myself, Trevor Coleman, Isaac Josephson,
yeah.
Mike Ennels was a freshman that year. I think he redshirted. And then Brody Grantham was rotating a little bit.
Shout out.
We had, and obviously,
it was crazy.
Like Grantham and Ennels, they turned out real well too.
Yeah.
So it's like we had some dudes, some good depth.
All right, so come out of halftime, 14-7 lead. First game of the year. You guys kind of got the nerves out of your system. You hit a few people, whatever. Kickoff to St. Cloud. They try to foolishly throw a pass in Matt Young's direction. He says, "I'm not having any of that," and kicks it off. You remember that, Matt?
Yeah, that was about my entire contribution to the team that year.
You used that 4.9 speed and got going, didn't you?
Couldn't quite take it all the way, and even if I could, I think I gassed out about halfway.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that actually kind of kick-started the whole team because
absolutely.
When that third quarter, if I'm just going to read off some of the scores after that interception, we had a Angulo 7-yard touchdown catch, a Brady Rose 64-yard touchdown catch, Kyle Gronewig 39-yard touchdown catch from Brady Rose, and Justin Folks touchdown run. Mm-hmm. And then in the fourth quarter, kind of in some garbage time, but cleanup time, we'll call it. Max Mickey caught a 20-yard touchdown pass from Mr. Automatic Corbin Lawler. So,
Mr. Automatic,
the T legend, baby.
All right. I'm going to say this. I didn't add up the stats, but Corbin Lawler statistically had one of the most impressive touchdown to completion ratios that season.
I believe it.
Out of anyone in USF history.
I think
he had like 5 touchdowns on 7 passes that year or something.
Was always ready, I think that got prepared more than anybody else, like on the team. Maybe besides John Tidwell, but that guy was always on it, so he was always ready for whatever moment you threw him in there.
That was another guy on offense too. Was Justin Folks? He wasn't mentioned, but he had a great senior year. He
was just such a good compliment to Max too. I mean, most other teams, he's getting all the carries, and he's having 1,000+ yards. So. Just a testament to how good we were back there.
Yeah. So the final score ended up being USF 49, St. Cloud 13.
Damn.
I don't know. Yeah. Pretty happy on the way home. I drove up there with Matt Witwicky and Al Hansen, and we enjoyed our pizza and beverages after the game. It's always nice after a win to enjoy that stuff. But the following week, you guys came back home. Played MSU Moorhead. That one was an interesting game. The final score was 42-21. This one was where Max. So I don't want to say anything bad about this, but Max ended the game with 185 yards, and I think he got down to the inside the 5-yard line like 4 times, and Luke scored all 4 of those touchdowns.
Wow, nice, Luke.
Dang.
Nice, Luke.
So yeah. So between those first 2 games, you know, Max is starting off the year really well. Folks is starting off well. Luke ended up with, I think we've got, you know, 3 guys that are above 200 yards rushing or above 150 yards rushing after 2 games. So some pretty decent stats offensively and defensively, you know, giving up only 34 points those first 2 games was also very impressive.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any memories from that MSU Moorhead game?
The biggest thing I remember about Moorhead is just how as a program they improved significantly over the years we played them. I really got to say they did a really good job there. Just the first year we played them, I want to say we scored like 70 points on them or something like that. Just something ridiculous. And to see that program improve and just I was really impressed with them, you know, the later years we played them. That was a testament to, you know, their coaching staff and everything.
The only thing I remember from that game is after they scored the first touchdown, Coach Jackson pulled the defensive side and kind of lit us up a little bit. And then after they scored the second, he kind of like calmed down. And that was something that Coach Jackson was so good at, was like his emotional intelligence of understanding what type of person he needed to be at the time for the defense. I mean, if he needed to chew you out, he'd chew you out. But if he needed to like calm you down and be like, okay, take a breath, get back to the game plan, like this is what we need to do. And now that, I mean, he's a head coach now, and I'm excited to see what he can do there, especially with that sort of talent that he's going to be able to do.
Yeah.
So I will mention to our audience out there watching, feel free to comment as we go. We can pull some of those comments in, but one of the things that Nick brings up here is the 212. So
212,
that was
baby.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys want to talk about what that was a little bit.
Yeah, I guess the 212 was like just the identity of our defense. It was something Coach Jackson, you know, brought to the program, and everybody we just bought into it. And every day was energy. It was a lot of consistency. It was a lot of, you know, getting better as a unit. I can't remember the chant we always said. What was it?
We believe.
We
That
believe.
one?
Yeah, we believe.
In the relentless pursuit of perfection, incorporating our 3 weapons, eyes, hands, and feet.
Therefore, we would challenge ourselves daily.
Of daily.
To win one-on-one battles.
Win one-on-one. Yes. Not settling to be better, but only the best.
Yes, sir. And that's how we start every meeting. And also, we all really believe that. Like,
absolutely.
We're not trying to be better than anybody. We're trying to be the best. And that was our mindset with the whole defense. And there was swagger about it. There was an attitude about it that everybody bought into it.
And for those of you at home who don't quite get like what the numbers 2-1-2 incorporate with that, Coach Jackson told us in the meeting one day that at 211 degrees, water is hot. At 212 degrees, it boils in steam. And that steam can power a locomotive. So be that extra degree. And the funniest thing was later, I don't know if I ever told him this, but in a science class, we figured out that water doesn't always boil at 212 degrees, depending on the altitude. So sometimes it's 208 degrees, sometimes it's 214. But we won't
But it's 212 in our hearts.
That's science.
It was 212. Well, I remember the first fall camp meeting, it was like everybody, I think he like divided up any guys who had on defense. He's like each guy owes this amount of degree, and it won't work until everybody's together. But he was real good at hyping the boys up, for sure.
Yeah. Especially on Tuesday meetings.
You got to be pumped up for practice on Tuesday.
A couple of chairs may have been broken.
After practice on Tuesday. I don't think we ever had a good meeting after we practice on Tuesday.
We never had a good
we had a good practice or not. It was not a good meeting. Like
that entire senior year, we didn't have one good Tuesday practice.
Not one.
Not one.
That's install day for those of you who don't know. And yeah, we get kind of our game plan or whatever. And so it can sometimes be a little bit rough, but I mean, some days we would have some decent practices and it was still the same reaction.
Everybody's walking on eggshells because you know the play you messed up on and you know he's going to call you out. He's like, oh, man, this is it.
Yep. Good times.
So the following week, week 3, you guys obviously 2-0, go up to Minot, which is always a fun trip.
Why not?
Why not?
Show up in Minot, get off the bus, receive the opening kickoff. Luke Papillion takes it 72 yards to the house.
Yeah.
Very first play of the game. Never really looked back that game. 41-14 was the final. 3 guys over 75 yards rushing. Luke had 101. Folks had 94, and Max had 76. Brady Rose also had a 24-yard touchdown catch. And it looks like Mailing had a touchdown in that game, too.
He had an interception.
Oh, yeah, pick six, right?
Yeah, he had
Yeah.
a pick 6.
Yeah. Jess had an incredible game that game. I will say that. Give him a shout out. He had a sack for 9 yards and second on the team in tackles.
Impressive memory, Nate.
Yeah.
I'll tell you
I
what,
didn't
Nate,
write
I
that down. I did not write that down.
The only thing I
I had to
remember
give
about
you a
that game
shout
was
out
it
for
was
that.
hot. And I couldn't find any water anywhere.
It
I don't know where all
was
the
so
water-
hot.
There was never any water.
Why was Minot so hot?
I don't know. It was so hot.
I feel like every time the Coup went up there to play Minot, it was hot.
I remember pregame. Obviously, the heat kind of caught us off guard. You think I'm basically in Canada, so it's not going to be hot. And Terry Huber coming up to me, and for those who don't know, I'm an exercise science major. I'm strength coach. So at the time too, I was studying all that stuff, and I would help Terry here and there with some things, like muscle soreness, thing like that. And he came up to me and he goes, Rich. I'm like, what's up, Terry? Like, are you okay? He's like, dude, my back's real tight. And I'm like, well, I mean, I don't really know what to do. I'm like, I saw this lower back release on the internet the other day. Like, you want me to try that on you? I'm like, this seems like a really good time to experiment with, lower backs right before a game. He's like, yeah, do it. And I just, we tried it out and it ended up working. He felt all right after, but it was hilarious. I'm like, all right, let's experiment right before a game. Cool. That's a good idea. So
That's incredible.
Man, so you guys came back home. Hopefully you were able to find some water sometime between when you left Minot and when you got back home. We're able to replenish the hydration supply a little bit. But the following week, you guys played Bemidji State at home.
Oh, my gosh.
This game, I had ranked in my top 10 of all-time greatest games in USF history. This is just a phenomenal game, back and forth.
Pivotal.
Yeah, Bemidji started off with a 14-0 lead right away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then, Garner hit a field goal right at the end of the first quarter. But then, they scored again, and it was 20-3 at halftime. So you guys, I mean, not much going right there in the first half. 20-3. I don't even know if you want to tell what the mood was like in the halftime locker room.
I actually feel like I remember this game pretty well, and this is probably one of the best coach games that I've ever been a part of. The coaches just got together, and especially on the defensive side, we almost wiped our entire defensive plan, and Coach Jackson just came up with something on the fly from what he saw and talked to Coach Stugart, and they figured it out, and it was a totally different second half. So just coaching changed the game that game.
I remember offensively too. Honestly, at halftime, whereas situations in the prior years, you'd see a little bit of panic. Everybody was really calm. We knew we were, a step away from a block here to break a run there. We knew we were right there. It just came down to executing. Another thing too, shout out to Coach Cam Ostrom.
Yeah.
So he picked up on one of their major blitzes that was giving us a ton of trouble in the first half. And on the headset, he'd chime in when he saw it coming, and he'd say, the Beaver Blitz is coming. And immediately we switch our protection, and that was actually a really big part of our success in the second half of the game, being able to identify that and then audible to the appropriate protection. So shout out to Cam Ostrom on that. Miss you, Cam.
Yeah, I think coming to that game, we knew pretty well they had a pretty solid team. I think they had the second best O-line beyond ours in the conference. Those guys were big, physical. They had a big old running back, Ty Main, which I went to high school with, so I know him pretty well. So I remember telling him, I don't know if Josh hit him in the second half or the first half, but I remember telling Butler, man, Ty's tough, but I think if we hit him a couple times, it'll be okay. I remember Josh Butler hit him so hard on the sideline, And I think I just set the tone for the whole defense. I think we hear that from the stands. I'm like, okay, let's go. He's a big dude, but he just knocked him on his butt. So I don't know if that was the first half, second half, but I just remember that play specifically being just hitting him and Josh, those skinny arms getting up.
Bang. But yeah, I will say that offensive line was one of the toughest ones we went against all season. Super physical, but aside from our offensive line that we went against every single day, I mean, that prepped us pretty well, or really well for it. They weren't quite at our offensive line level, but like they were good. That was the best we've seen all year, and I was pretty sore. And I was also happy we were playing Augie next week because they were soft. It was a total different offensive line the next week.
We'll get there in a second. We got a whole second half of a game to talk about here.
Yeah.
So you guys obviously great coaching adjustments at halftime. You guys were able to come out in the second half, received that second half kickoff, and the very first play, Max Mickey runs for 75-yard touchdown. So I think that kind of changed the momentum of the game a little bit. I don't know if you guys remember that a whole lot.
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah, I remember it because for us it was like finally, we like there it is right away. We're hitting exactly what we need to hit. I said some probably unsavory things on the sideline as he was running down, but we knew I knew right then and there. I'm like, all right, here we go. Like this the second half, this is our half now. We not that we have this game in the bag, but I'm like we're starting to click. We're finally getting that little extra oomph. So. This should help us bring it back, reel it in a little bit.
Was that when he put that dude in the dirt?
Yeah,
Noah Daniel in the comments shout out. Put that.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and put that up on the screen.
Literally into the ground, like he buried
that
it.
was nasty stiff arm.
Yeah.
And that guy was in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Really good player. Max,
So then USF kind of went. I think that just sparked it. Went on a huge run in that third quarter. Josh Angulo caught 3 touchdowns, 1 yard. The 1 yard one was from Corbin Lawler. So I think Luke had run it down to like the 1 yard line and gotten hit. His helmet came off or something, and he had to come out for a play. And so of course Corbin goes in and throws touchdowns, right?
Just what he does.
Just a ball.
Yeah. There used to be a saying that all Chris Carter did was catch touchdowns. All Corbin Lawler does is throw. And then Josh caught a 4-yarder from Luke and a 43-yarder from Luke. Luke also had a 46-yard run, and Bemidji had a couple touchdowns in there too. So at the end of the third quarter, it's 37-30, I believe. And the fourth quarter is kind of a defensive slugfest all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Just back and forth. I think there was a couple interceptions going on there in the fourth quarter. We got one. I don't remember who got it.
Jeff Harmon, I think.
Jeff Harmon?
Might have been Jeff. I don't.
Or Cliff.
I think it was.
No, I think
I don't remember.
We can look that up later. But so we got an interception. And then with 17 seconds left, Bemidji scores a touchdown.
Insane.
So the game's almost over. Insane. Yep. And
I think we all knew they were going to go for 2 as well.
Oh, yeah.
We all knew
I'm
it.
like shaking right now just thinking about it.
Everybody in that stadium knew they were going for 2. There's no reason for them to try to, just play it safe and go for overtime. Everybody knew they were going for 2.
Yeah.
So I talk about the 2-point conversion then. I don't know. Jess, do you remember it, or Matt, one of you guys?
I remember it. I think they ran to the weak side there, and I was right by it. The dude just fumbled right at the pylon.
Yeah.
I don't even think anybody touched him.
No, I think
the ball.
Well, it's kind of one of those jet sweeps that he was kind of like fumbling, but then also we had who was coming.
It was
down
weird. He was like reaching for the pylon, and then it just like kind of flew out of his hand, and we all just went nuts. Like that was the moment that led to the rest of our season being undefeated. Like.
This is what makes football so great is like you can have 2 really great teams and a break here or there makes an entire season. I mean, it's an insane sport. I mean, he very easily could have scored that, and maybe our season is different. Like, who knows?
It was crazy.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. Joe Rodino chimed in there and said that Jeff Harmon had that pick. So.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks,
Thanks, Joe.
That's a great guy right there, Joe Rodino.
Stats guy.
Great guy. Go Birds, Joe.
So that, basically all you guys had to do is take a knee and run out the clock and win the game. And that was an instant classic in USF football history. 37-36 was the final. Max Mickey ended up with 207 yards rushing. Papillion had 163 yards rushing that game. Josh Angulo had 15 catches for 164 yards and 3 touchdowns.
What?
If you started those 3 guys in your fantasy,
that's the day.
That's a dub for sure.
I used to look up that all the time. I used to look up our stats after games, our offensive stats, and like if I had these guys in my fantasy team, I'll probably win this week.
Yeah.
And Tosin doesn't win often in fantasy, so they would have really helped.
Yeah.
I mean, I did win the championship last year, just to not go off topic.
Different topic.
All right, so that's the end of September. October rolls around, starting off the month with the Key to the City game at Kirkby Over Stadium. Big deal. You guys had been around, since 2012, so you kind of knew a lot of that history and how everything went. And I don't know, went over there and kind of put a whooping on them, as Nate said earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a 15-point win, but like that game's always tough. I mean, it is what it is. Rivalry game. But there's another team that I think we have a bigger rivalry with, but we'll get to that later. But I mean, their offensive line, going off of Bemidji, I mean, it was like night and day difference there. And then, I mean, playing Trey Hyde again and kind of shutting that thing down.
Mailing had out of the pocket probably 9-10 times, and Mailing chased him down every single time.
Perfect guy to have as a spy for him.
Yeah.
I mean, guy was so fast. Mailing was so fast and could just chase him down. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I just remember that obviously the game's always personal, rivalry game, you're 2 miles away, whatever it is. But some of the things and the way they celebrated on our field the year before, I think really fueled a lot. He had a couple of their guys, especially some of their offensive linemen the year prior, walking over, flexing on our guys, things like that. And that really fueled it, especially offensively, because we feel like we definitely the year before underperformed offensively. Kind of went to a shell a little bit and the rest from there. So we wanted to showcase, like that was a fluke. We want to make sure, we're the premier team in Sioux Falls. So, but I just remember a couple funny observations from watching the defense. I don't know if you guys remember, but Josh Butler had a play where he came. Was that the game that he got ejected or should have been ejected? I'm pretty sure that was. He had a really close targeting ball.
Ended that man's life.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there was also another play where he knocked himself almost unconscious. He got up and he had baby gazelle legs and was wobbling all over the place. I forgot who was next to me, but I grabbed him and I was like, Josh Butler just knocked himself out. He just knocked himself out.
Every single game playing next to him.
Oh, it was
as a linebacker. If you hadn't gotten hit in the back of the head by his helmet, I mean, you haven't been living, I guess.
And that was a game
Every linebacker had a back plate, not because of the offense, because of Josh Butler coming down.
He was always sacrificing his body. I just remember that so distinct. He tried to get up and start running, and he just leaned forward, and he was top heavy, and just started taking off and fell. And I was like, oh no, I'm like, you guys. But he was fine after that. That was a game that Cliff also had that really good interception in the corner of the end zone.
He had a good game that game.
But that one felt really good.
That was definitely extra
Cliff. That's Cliff Redmond, right?
Cliff Redmond.
Cali boy.
Trying to give everyone a shout out here, guys.
Yep. Shout out, Cliff.
They all deserve a shout out,
Cliff, wherever
I
you're watching.
We lost to Augie the year before, and I swear, Chad, you would thought like our mothers just died. Like just the whole mood of for for the whole week. I think like going to school and going to classes and losing to Augie. It was not right. So
It was similar.
Yeah, we knew we had to get that one.
I felt like it was similar to when we missed out on playoffs that one year.
Yeah, very.
When we should have gotten in, and I remember we were like depressed for like
it was really
a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
it was pretty heartbreaking that year. But
Augie guys around because before we never seen them out, but then I feel like after we lost, I feel like I just like everywhere. I'm like, where have you been the last couple of years? Like, why am I seeing you?
Seriously.
All right, so this is a stat that was brought up here. That Augie game, we had 3 straight sacks at one point in the fourth quarter. Coach Jackson sent 6 on 3rd and 20. I wanted to bring this up. So you guys have mentioned some of the
Dan Gensler in here.
Yeah, you guys have mentioned some of the linebackers and some of the defensive backs, but who were the defensive linemen that played a lot that year?
When you talk depth,
Yep.
our D line was as deep as any.
That
I would
was
put it in
a very nasty D line. Oh my God, it was so good. It was Mayberry, Turbo, Zach Tamburo.
That's Zach Tamburo. We had a D end.
Was a monster on the line.
Wes,
Wes Johnson, Drew Jackson, Evan Gentry, Logan Dykstra, Steve McKee.
That's insane.
I mean, just our D ends alone are like between the 3 rotations we did in the D end, never a drop off. Ever. Yeah. I mean, look at Logan Dykstra for one. I mean, look at the career he had, and he could have probably started since a freshman.
For real.
And that's how good our defensive ends were.
Did you say Mayberry? And then also we had remember Pedro?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Pedro.
Pedro was good too. Yep.
Transfer from Louisville. We got for a quick season.
Yeah.
Which that is something that I think that a lot of teams don't do well. That USF did really well, at least in our time there, was when JUCO transfers came into the program. Like they obviously had to earn it, like everyone else. But the minute that they earned it, they were part of the family instantly.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like the normal recruits in JUCOs, how some programs have it. Like they were part of the family once they showed up and they were willing to work.
If they worked hard.
Spencer Holly was also part of that D-line group.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. You guys had deep squad that year. Noah Daniel says best D-line I've seen here to this day. So
yeah.
If Noah says it, I believe
in that.
All right. So obviously the Augie game went really well. Nate mentioned it was a 15-point win, 35-20, but one of those touchdowns they got was really, really late. Kind of a end of the game touchdown. So really it was more dominant than that.
Yeah.
Dronewig had a 55-yard touchdown catch that game. Luke had a touchdown run. Max had 2 touchdown runs that game. So pretty impressive offensive performance and defensive performance by the Cougars on that day. And it always feels good to, get that key back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Especially
Absolutely.
after what happened the previous year.
Derek Landis. We didn't mention Derek Landis, but we want to make sure.
Oh, yeah, Derek Landis.
Landis was a monster.
Yeah, how could we forget him?
First year, he actually got significant playing time, and I mean,
yeah,
we all knew that he was a monster for a long time, and he actually got a shot in. Yes, Landis.
Just want to make sure we're getting everyone here.
Yeah.
Well, I have a roster right here. I could probably just read it off if you guys want.
Yeah, seriously.
That's all right.
Might as well shout out everybody.
Yeah.
All right. So October 8th, at home again, which, we were in Sioux Falls the last 3 weeks anyways, but this time we played Southwest Minnesota State. They had a quarterback, this Blake Gimbel guy that was supposed to be really good. And he did have a pretty decent game that year. But USF ended up winning 48-28 behind a huge rushing attack. I'm going to read these stats, you guys, the offensive stats, and then you guys can tell me some things from the game. But in this game alone, Max Mickey had 156 yards rushing with 3 touchdowns rushing and 1 touchdown reception. Justin Folks had 140 yards rushing with 2 touchdowns rushing. Luke Papillion had 122 yards rushing. So that's 3 guys over 100 yards, over 120 yards. And then Brady Rose had 12 catches for 119 yards. And poor Stu Vandenhavel only got to punt 1 time that game. So he was probably a little disappointed.
Shout out, Stu.
So that always feels good when our offense does well against them, because we had kind of a dark spot on our record with SMSU as far as yardage goes. But it's always nice.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So
that's way before.
That's way in the past.
But it's always nice to put up a lot of yards against them. And
the year previous, I remember specifically how they're usually up tempo, no huddle offense.
Oh God.
And they'll usually script every play of the first drive.
Yes.
And 2015, I've never seen an offense move so fast. Like before the official was spotting the ball, they had already snapped it and he had thrown it to the next guy. And we're like still on the sideline for a call. So coming in 2016, it was nice to at least give a goose egg in the first quarter. And I think we got like a 3-and-out.
Threw up the 4th play. We were sprinting so hard.
I ended up puking.
The
2015 game
coming off the field after the first drive.
I was so exhausted because they were just going like that.
It was
2015. But yeah, I do want to give a shout out because so Blake Gimble, I played in high school too, and I ended up sacking him every single year, even in college too.
Wow.
So way back to high school, and then so
That's a fun stat.
Screw you, Blake.
He played at Marshalltown. So.
Hey, Blake, if you're watching right now,
watch
no,
your
man.
Nate's coming for you again. Watch your back on the street.
Probably here in Iowa. I'll have to see. No, just kidding. But
oh man. Well, we'll move on to the next game. October 15th, you guys head over to Winona, which is an interesting place to play, and end up pulling that one out, 41-30. The score at halftime was 10-9, and that was a weird 10 because USF had scored a touchdown right away. I think Luke scored early, and then there was 4 field goals, 1 by USF and 3 by Winona in the first half, which was very atypical as far as the scoring had gone so far that year. So really interesting. Second half, once again, the guys came out and ran the ball. Max scored 2 touchdowns and Folk scored 1. So ended up putting up some points. What do you guys remember from that Winona State game?
So Winona's always a tough place to play. And so that's what I was kind of referring to back when we were talking about Augie. Like Winona's kind of up there as a rival, I think.
I don't like anything about them. They steal our colors.
What?
All these players
Dude, that's a hostile place to go in and play. I mean, they're always, yelling stuff at us, and I don't know, man.
Jess?
I think they're up there, but you guys don't agree or what?
No,
I
remember walking up to the field, and they were tearing into us, and I was in the middle of the pack, and these 4 fans picked me out and just started tearing into me. And I'm like, I think it was between Terry Huber and Trey Pipkins. So I look like a midget between them. So obviously they weren't going to pick on them, I guess. So they just saw me and that guy. We want that guy.
What they say? They're like, there's no way you're on scholarship.
I played up 42.
You're the coach's son.
Winona was always fun. That was really one of the few places that we went to play where it really felt like a hostile college football atmosphere that you kind of hear about in big time football. And they always lit us up when we were walking in through the tailgates. Always lit us up. I forgot they were calling one of the linemen. They were calling him fat and stuff. And I was just keeping my head down and looking forward. I'm like, I'm not doing anything. Don't look at me. Don't start ripping at me. I don't know if I can handle this right now. But
it's such an intelligent design to schedule the away locker room. That's to go through the tailgate to get to the field. What a genius.
Yeah.
And it's always gorgeous there too, late fall too, with all the trees and stuff. It's
And they've got
place
that
to
big train track kind of right on the end zone there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
once in a while, the train will go through when you're trying to warm up or whatever. And
It's a
Yeah.
cool stadium. It's a cool area.
I think besides Augie, that might be my second favorite stadium to play at.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would agree.
absolutely.
and the Bob too. What?
Well, obviously, Bob was the first.
Yeah, away stadium.
Nice, Nate.
well, that Winona Stadium actually, USF suffered some really heartbreaking losses. I don't know if you guys remember the 2012
yeah.
loss over there. That was, I think, at 10-9 with the final
10-9.
score.
Yeah.
It was.
Missed the field or extra point.
Yeah, missed the extra
Which
point
is
on
like
the very first
Or,
touchdown.
that was Braden Weeking's only miss extra point of his career. I mean, that guy had a stellar career. That's just football.
Yeah.
I remember they had a goal line stand. Bonte forced a fumble. It was just insane.
Yeah. But, 2016, you guys took care of them. Not a big deal. 41-30 final. So good to go. Come back home the next week, host Concordia. And not really much of an issue with Concordia either at home. Final was 51-17. Kyle Athman had 2 touchdown catches that game.
Shout out,
Kyle.
Silver
our roommate.
Max Mickey had 2 touchdown rushes and 1 reception. Folks had a touchdown. Luke had a touchdown. And Mr. Brett Garner had 1 field goal that game. So total, this was one of those ones where the stats weren't that impressive. As I was looking back on them, for scoring 51 points, we finished with 249 yards rushing and 183 yards passing. But in this game, in this Concordia game, one of the people on this panel right now had a 62-yard interception return that wasn't able to get you a score. But I don't know, Tosin, what do you want to tell us about that INT that you got against Concordia?
You know what? If you ask my teammates, they'll say, if I stuck to the sideline, I would record. But
coaches.
This was going through my head, right? So I get this pick. It's pretty funny. I got to run back. So at the top of my eye, I can see a guy. I'm like, he's a pretty fat line. I could shake him. I could juke him. Boom, joked around him, and I was running, but I was running out of gas. I could tell I'm running out of gas. I'm running out of steam. I'm like, oh, okay, I think all this left was at the quarterback. I just have to make him miss, and I couldn't get that last miss. But if you watch the film, though, I think maybe my teammates, they might have been right. Maybe if I stuck to the sideline. I just saw a cavalry come to the sideline of Concordia players. I'm like, okay, maybe I should cut this back. Can't fight the instinct. So I just cut it back, didn't score. I think that's the second time where I should have scored that I didn't. I think, what was it, the year before, a couple years before, I had a punt return. Well, no, it was a fumble on a kickoff. I picked it up.
Yes.
And I met Chad, you tweeted this. You said Tosin scored. Because I did score.
Yeah.
But they ruled me
Hashtag
out.
get Tosin his
Tosin gate.
touchdown.
They ruled me out half-yard line, whatever. I'm like, man, I scored that.
Tosin scored, man.
Well, you see, here's the thing, too, is, on that team, Tosin was probably top 3 with a 40-yard dash. Absolutely a blazer. But like you said, it was a 65-yard return. He just ran out of gas.
Yeah.
He just
We've
ran
seen
out
him
of
run.
gas. He's not a long
distance
guy.
I'm not just
No.
No.
Well, it was 65 yards, not counting all the jukes and jives
Right,
and everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
You can't forget the other 60 yards. I don't know how far down the field he threw the ball when I got the pick. So I have to run down the first and I have to run back.
Right,
so
exactly.
There's a lot of mileage in the track.
Can we get one of those NFL trackers that tracks his movements?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
See.
How far he ran?
Must have been 2 miles or something.
It had to be.
Well, yeah, I got a lot of heat the next day because coach usually put together a highlight film and everybody knew what was coming. And of course, when I got tackled,
Go.
my God.
Oh man, yep, that was great. So that was the highlight I thought that I came up with and reading through the play-by-play from that game. Here we got a Logan Dykstra typed in.
Stairways. Yes. So
Stairway to
there's a
heaven.
story behind that, but
Well, if it's appropriate, go ahead, tell it now.
Oh, absolutely.
well, Tosin was just we were running Stairway to Heavens, and it's a
Which is
pretty
one of our-
long distance.
Yeah, it's one of Mather's death workouts that he loves to.
And
It's
towards the
basically
end,
you run a certain distance, run back, run again, run back, you build upon it. And he would play Stairway to Heaven during the time. And like I said, Tolson's a sprinter, and his back locked up, and it was just
He's just started waddling.
He fell behind to the point that the team had
literally
finished, and then had ran back to cheer him on, and he was gimping like he had ridden a horse for 3 straight days.
He was waddling.
He was moving side to side faster than he was forward.
There was a lot of pain going on. But I didn't want to stop. I wanted to finish the workout. Because, I mean, usually, like I said, I'm not a distance guy, but I'm never that far back. Like, I'm usually out to finish.
No.
That day, my back, I don't know, just tweaking my back. I couldn't really run. And even Matt was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" Like, right now.
Yeah.
Dude, what are you doing? Like, are you okay? I was like, man, I just get into, I was pretty upset that, I don't know. I just not feeling that day. Like, I just finished the workout, did my thing, and whatever.
And, maybe if he would have felt it, he would have scored the touchdown. We don't know.
Yeah. Who knows?
Well, next week, move on. Weekend before Halloween, go over to Mankato. And, place where USF had never beaten Mankato before. And even in 2014, that was kind of the make or break game right at the end of the season there, and went over there and got beat by a little bit. But in 2016, went back over there. And by the way, I won't even bring up what happened in 2015 because that wasn't very, very pretty. But go back over there in 2016, and you guys, I mean, really played very, very well that game.
That was my favorite game of my career. I mean, it was just so sweet to finally beat them.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was kind of the iconic, when Steve Young finally won his Super Bowls after Joe Montana, and they took the monkey off the back. I vividly remember. I'm pretty sure it was Coach Stugart had somebody take the monkey off his back. It was so good to
not like
Yeah,
that game was really personal for us on offense too, because we never really performed that well against Mankato. We had our moments where we were really good, but we never really put a full game together. And I mean, if you look at the score, obviously it wasn't our other games, but knowing how good their defense was, and even schematically, I mean, they just played so tough. That one just felt really good for us to finally. Gosh dang, that felt really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mankato started off the scoring. They threw it to that Zylstra guy. Right away up top, and we're up 7-0 at the end of the first, and then the second and third quarters just belonged to the Cougars. I basically just took over with the running game. 24 straight points between those 2 quarters, so phenomenal. At the end of the third quarter, it was 24-7, and then they scored a touchdown late to bring it back to within 10, but I mean, it was pretty much over at the end of the third quarter there. It was a very dominant game. Some of the stats, Luke had 2 touchdowns rushing that game. Josh Angulo had the other touchdown receiving. And then Brett kicked a 32-yard field goal.
Mm-hmm.
So that was all the scoring. But as far as, I said the previous game against Concordia, the stats weren't that impressive. For 51 points, this one USF scored 24, and Mickey had 165 yards rushing, Luke had 104 yards rushing, and Folks had 70 yards rushing. So between that's over 300 yards just between those 3 guys rushing on the team.
They were a problem that year.
Yeah.
That was the thing with our offense. Yeah, the thing with our offense, it was just we could attack you so many different ways. Obviously, we already touched on the O-line, just how dynamic they were. A lot of teams kind of get put into a box where it's like, hey, we're a power team, we're a zone type of team, outside zone. That offensive line could do it all, and we had the skill guys behind it to just complement it so well. I mean, everybody in the backfield was so good. All our wide receivers were so technically sound and so good. So that's what made it click, is because, all right, well, this isn't working. Well, guess what? We're really good at this too. Like, oh, you're stopping our power run game? Guess what? We're going to go outside zone. Not only are we good at it, but we have the athletic ability to get to the edge too. And we have these ridiculous running backs. Oh, and you got to watch out for Luke Papillion running the ball. And you got to watch out for, Brady Rose catching and Josh. So it was just, we had so many options. I think that's really what made our offense dynamic is we weren't tied to just one thing. We did so many things so well.
If I do remember right, though, Luke, not on the stats, that was one of Luke Fillion's best games. I mean, he made like 4 or 5 third down throws that were just awesome throws. I mean, I don't know. I just remember him playing so well.
And Luke did have one of the most impressive, reading off this comment, he had an unbelievably impressive run that game.
Yeah.
If I remember right, he truck sticked somebody into oblivion.
Yes.
Well, I think it did actually. Yeah.
I was just thinking about that. I'm pretty sure he had a run like that was just unreal.
Luke had a great game.
He like split 2 guys or something like that.
Yeah.
He just trucked 2 guys or something, or
just tremendous.
insane.
If I was better at this stuff, I would have cut up film footage from the game and like been able to bring up some clips and stuff. But unfortunately, I'm not that good. But yeah, that was a phenomenal game for Luke. So speaking of dynamic offenses, so obviously we went home. We had fun, at Halloween after beating Mankato, still undefeated, whatever. The next week, come out and host Upper Iowa, and this was the one where Rich, you were just mentioning about the dynamic offense and everything. One of the first plays of the game, Clint Sig threw a touchdown to Kyle Gronewig. I don't know if you remember that. Clint Sig was a kind of a freshman tight end at the time and had previously played quarterback, and Coach Stugart, liked doing weird stuff with him and had him throw a pass. So
yeah, that was one thing. At first, when Clint had first got there, I had no idea he had played quarterback before. He's a big body, and I remember we were in the bubble one day, and he's just whipping passes across the bubble to people right before a workout or something like that. And I'm like, I looked at somebody, I'm like, dude, has this guy played quarterback before? What do we got going on here? And they're like, oh yeah, he was like a really good quarterback. And so we knew we kind of had that in our back pocket. And so that we had a lot of trick plays dialed up that we never actually ran, which is pretty disappointing. You always love a trick play, a good trick play. I mean, there's just nothing like it, but we had a lot of them dialed up that we never ran, but obviously we had that one dialed up and we knew exactly when to run it. Coach Avorka had a really good mind for that, when to kind of throw up a change up to people.
Well, I'm going to give Coach Havorka a hard time for not running as many trick plays then.
Yeah.
My philosophy is if you practice it, you got to run it in a game.
He just likes scoring a lot of points and getting a lot of rushing yards. I mean,
yeah. Like, what is that?
So this game also, Cliff Redmond had a 30-yard interception return for a touchdown against Upper Iowa.
Yeah.
So pretty impressive performance. Gronewig had another touchdown catch later on from Luke. Max had 2 touchdown runs, and then Colton Miles actually had a 16-yard touchdown. Young Colton Miles.
Yes.
So
that's crazy.
Pretty much dominant performance. 51-7 was the final. I don't know what happened with the 7 points. Do we want to talk about that, or is that?
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. What happened with the 7 points at the end?
Oh no!
We beat Lucknow all game pretty much. And before he scored, I think he had like 2 fades on me before, not cut, like defended 2 fades, and he was complaining like even his coach was like in my ear, like that's holding, bro. But whatever. So I think they tried it again. They threw I think it was in cover 4. He ran like a fade route, but he took it up the seam. I think I just lost the ball in the air, or like I don't know. It was just a weird play. He cut the ball. It's like, oh man, come on.
I don't either.
Was that the same year, or was that in 2015?
That was 2015.
Oh, was that 20? No,
I think so, because Upper Iowa scored in the first quarter, and then they didn't score again. And I think the one you're talking about
was a year. I remember, because I remember the one against Upper Iowa 2 years ago, and then that one. I think it was 2.
Where's Gensler? We need him.
Regardless, they got 7 points. It would have been nice to get a shutout because it would have been nice to get something special about getting a shutout. I think
there is.
I mean, I don't think we only got 1 shutout in our time at USF from 2012 to 2016. St. Cloud, wasn't it?
In 2016?
From 2012 to 2016, as a defense, we only had 1 complete shutout, didn't we? That was St. Cloud.
Probably. I mean, we were close always. Like
right.
1 point
That's what I
or
mean.
1
So,
score.
I mean, 1 random touchdown, it just sucks because it's like on defense, having a 0 on the scoreboard is just
Looks
It's
nice.
huge. Yeah.
So speaking of that, the last game of the regular season, once again, you guys, Wayne State comes in. This is,
Wayne.
basically for the first conference championship,
Mhm.
In the Division II era for USF. And USF, basically you guys had a dominant stretch there. We're up 30-0, and then there's 2 minutes and 46 seconds left, and they score a touchdown. So
Yeah.
another one where you are so close to a shutout and just couldn't pull it off.
Yeah.
The old Egg Bowl. The old Egg Bowl.
Yeah.
Wayne
If
America.
we were at Wayne, it would have been the Egg Bowl.
Yeah.
But that would have been something to win the conference championship and the Egg Bowl.
I don't know what. So every year, Wayne State, for like their final game, they call it the Egg Bowl. So, I don't know what would have been more impressive, winning the Egg Bowl or the NSIC Championship.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I think Wayne is the one I was talking about. The late touchdown wasn't Wayne. That last game was. I think
Yeah.
so.
But
Yeah. So what was the feeling like for all you guys? Obviously, I think Jess, your Twitter profile banner pic still is you guys holding the conference championship banner and
Yeah.
everything.
Well,
What was it like after that game?
Like at the start of every season, that's every team's goal across America is to win the conference championship. Obviously, the national championship is awesome, but like the conference championship is where you start for every single team. And for 4.5 years, we've been talking about it, and to finally get it, and like they were passing out T-shirts and everyone was hugging each other. It's one of those memories to where I can close my eyes and I can still be on the field right now and see everyone's faces. And again, it was just the entire team just loved each other all year, and just like everyone was just so ecstatic to finally like wear that conference championship T-shirt. And it was just special.
Yeah.
I think a big thing too with that is we really prided ourselves on winning it outright.
Right.
It wasn't a share of it, because what is it? Augustana had won a share of it the year before, and they're all they're tweeting about it, all their rings
Share of
and
the
stuff.
South. Share of the South.
And we
Yeah.
had it in our minds, we're like, we're going to win this thing outright. We're going to, there's going to be no controversy, who the best team in the conference was. And we really wanted to prove that because we knew we could have done it. And just to see all that work culminate in that moment was pretty special. And I got to say, it was a pretty unbelievable moment for us.
I think Matt Young actually started crying on my shoulder, if I remember correctly.
I think he did.
I think he did.
I think I might have been, but that was from the shoulder surgery I had the day before.
Oh, dang. No, but we had so many like prior good teams too, and it's just like to finally like everything just came together, and like it takes a lot for everything to come together like that, because like I said, we've had some like phenomenal teams, and for it to everything to align right for us to win that outright was really, really meaningful. And we got some rings from him too. So
I think that was the most fun team. I think that's the most fun we've had on. Correct me if I'm wrong, but of any of our teams, I think that's something we always talked about and look back like, man, we had a lot of fun like that year. We had a lot of characters on the team. Obviously winning a lot of games, and it was just all around really just fun year.
Yeah. So you guys don't get a week off or anything. You got to turn right back around to play the playoffs the following week.
Mhm.
November 19th. Luckily, I think we were the number 2 team in the Super region. So we basically got to host the first and then the second round, which was very advantageous. The first round, Sioux Pacific came in from California. So nice work, NCAA, nice regionalization there.
Yeah.
But sorry, did I say that out loud?
Yeah.
But the Sioux Pacific game, I remember it was cold. I think
Cold.
Really
game
cold.
time at 26 degrees. I believe that was the game that beforehand maybe Max Mickey came out wearing a sweater.
Yeah.
Yep.
Christmas sweater.
Is that Christmas he had on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christmas sweater.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think
Snow
that kind
on
of
the
lightened
ground.
the mood a little bit too, right?
It did.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they were talking about with characters. I mean, there were so many characters on that team. It was just like Max Mickey wearing that sweatshirt out there. It was just another time in which someone doing something, like you're saying, made the whole environment a little bit easier to deal with.
I think we felt a lot of pressure. Obviously, it kind of stemmed even from the last year, kind of underperforming in that first round of playoffs. I think it was a huge relief too when our first playoff game wasn't this kind of just absolute cluster of a travel thing. You know, with that plane, the great plane delay of 2015, where we were in the airport for 3 days and 4 nights, whatever it was. So it's kind of a relief to have everything come together and have smooth sailing going in the first game too. So I think we definitely felt a little bit of pressure with that, but after the ball was snapped, the pressure was gone. With Max kind of lightening the mood, I think that was one thing. Everybody had a really good feel for each other within the team. So if somebody was feeling real tense, you'd have Max come over, crack a joke, whatever. Whoever it was, Brady come over. So I think that was one thing. We were all really connected with in our mindsets.
I know that game, I think there was also some added motivation because we was playing one of our former coaches.
Coach Rivas.
I had that written down. Yeah, Rivas.
So that was definitely extra motivation to want to beat him in that game as well. So
Was Azusa Pacific? Did they run the Veer option?
No, that was Harding.
That's the next one.
no, that's Harding.
I have a good story for the next one. Oh wait.
Yes.
So in that first round game, obviously
wow.
got off to a pretty decent start. First half, Max Mickey had 2 touchdowns. Folks had another one. So at halftime, go in up 21-7. Pretty decent start. Everything kind of was loose. Some field goals were exchanged there in the third quarter. Garner kicked 2. I think he missed a third one. And then late in the game, it was, getting a little snug. And Max broke off for a 51-yard touchdown run in the fourth quarter. So kind of sealed the deal there scoring-wise, put it away. For the game, Mickey finished with 164 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. Folks had 90 yards and a touchdown. And our leading receiver, I mentioned it was cold, but our leading receiver was Eric Albeck, 3 catches for 77 yards that game. So he had a pretty huge game.
That's another thing, like just how deep we were. We had Angulo, Groneweg, Athman, and Albeck, like you talked about, and the guy we hardly ever talk about who was so clutch in every aspect was Nick Stank.
Stank.
Yeah.
Yes.
He could do it in the trenches, run blocking, pass protecting, and then his fingers or hands are jammed up from all the hits he's taken, but you throw him a pass, he'll catch it.
Yeah. Insane.
And now he's on the front line as a nurse.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Shout out. Yeah. And then I will say, so that running back coming in too from Azusa Pacific, do you remember all the hype around him? And we ended up holding him to 46 yards rushing. So, or the whole team to 46 yards. That was their bread and butter, was their running. And that was kind of nice to do that.
Thinking to us, he's not going to be better. He's not better than Max, and we go against Max every day.
Right.
I think that's another edge on our offense. Even going as a DB going against the receivers we had, I knew it's going to be red for me to face another receiver better than Angulo or Back or Athman. I see the best guys in practice every day. It's what you have is not going to be that much, that much better. So I think that was another edge that we had. Was so much depth and so much talent that we had on our team.
Yeah, well, like I said, Bemidji, being prepped for that type of a physical line that we faced in that game, we were going up against the best every single day, and that was huge in preparation. And we always gave all the effort, and that went a long way.
So the amount of depth you guys mentioned, but not only was that depth evident on offense and defense, but it was also very evident on the special teams as well.
Absolutely.
So I think I mentioned, Albeck, he actually had 7 tackles between the last 2 games of the year as a wide receiver.
Okay.
But, obviously he wasn't playing offense to get those tackles. Another guy who I remember being a special team stud was the guy that's right below me on the screen right now.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember you just absolutely demolishing people out there on every special team. So
absolutely.
And getting demolished once in a while.
Well,
I'll never forget always watching Jess on kickoff. What was it, 2 years ago, the year before that, whenever it was, and he always had to take on the double team, and it was an absolute fist fight every single time. And sometimes Jess would end up on his head, and like these two dudes are just mauling him.
I think Coach I cut you off for that game. You might have to talk to him about that.
Yeah, I always laugh, and then just to come off the field so angry, just frick.
Yes.
You're all right, Jess. They fair caught it. It wasn't even necessary. For them to get you.
Yeah.
But those are always the best watching him.
It was the bowl game against who we play. I don't remember. We destroyed them.
Yeah. That's the running back.
The running back, number 2.
That's the running back.
Oh yeah. Matt was saying that was the running
Number
back.
2.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, so make it to the second round, get a play after Thanksgiving, which is always good.
Mm-hmm.
So we end up playing Harding, and you mentioned, Matt, they ran a little bit different offense. I don't know if you remember a whole lot about that, but
Yeah.
Well, the story I had was obviously with the veer, there's several different options that they can attack with the QB, the fullback, pitch guy, counter, jet, pitch, whatever. And, it's a dying offense, but when you see a team that uses it, it's tough to game plan for just because you don't really see it a whole lot, especially when you're playing teams like in the spread and different pro formations and sets. So we came up with a game plan, and it was a good game plan. But my favorite part was Jess was about 1 yard off the line of scrimmage, and his job was to hit the dive player as hard as he could. And obviously when you're playing against a veer team, they like to cut as well. So it's not like tap tempo in practice. You got to get live reps. So we had a lot of live reps of Jess going
The prep.
the entire week. And about halfway through, like Wednesday or Thursday, he veered off to the trash can, took his helmet off, let a couple driplets out of some vomit, and then coming back on and came back out.
Remember that?
Mailing
this week?
We're not sure.
I remember
he moved Mailing back like 10 yards so he could just like have a free flow and tackle whoever had the ball, which worked out well. And it was just.
I remember. I was gonna say I remember that week of practice we had, and it was like honestly the most physical week of practice we had. And like going to the second week of playoffs, like to in a game, man. I mean, Coach Jackson mentality that whole game, man. It was all with it. But the amount of physical and this scout team they had on them, and it was just a fun week of practice. And I think we couldn't prepare any better for those guys.
I think I got in a couple of fights during practice that week.
Oh yeah,
I mean, tensions were high, and we were just smacking heads.
And this is in week 13 of the season, where he's
Jackson's like, we're going live. We're going live.
I will never
live
forget
cuts
that.
and everything.
The first day, like when we were talking about it, because I played scout team then at that point, and they were like, "Yeah, we're going live cuts," and I was like, "What?" They're like, "Yeah, make sure you cut some people," because at this point, I wasn't tremendous at everything about offensive line, but I could definitely cut people. So I was like, "All right, like this is awesome! Like this is the best thing ever." That whole week of practice was an absolute bloodbath.
It was.
I will never forget that. You guys remember Keenan, one of our running backs we used to have? Keenan Baynard. That's his last name, Baynard. I remember just because he was like a dive back on one of the plays, just getting absolutely killed. Like I'm talking like heels over, head over, feet over head, whatever you want to say. He was getting murdered, and I'm looking around, and it like for a second it was like a scene from Saving Private Ryan, just like bullets flying everywhere, like people just getting knocked out. And like I feel bad because like I'm cutting my friends who I know they're beat up, I know they're banged up. And don't get me wrong, I think I cut Jess once or twice, and I would always like try to tackle people and everything.
In terms of football, like being 1 yard away from the line of scrimmage as a linebacker is absolutely impossible to defend the cut. It's impossible because you can't see it coming at all. I think I was cut 25 times that week of practice. I mean, I was cut every other. My head is hurting just thinking about it. I'm getting a headache.
Like, it was just wild.
It was crazy.
And I think too, because we had one practice in the Avera bubble that week, if I'm not mistaken, right? And I think it was on a Wednesday. Was it on a Wednesday or Tuesday? but that was the most physical one. I don't know if it was just because the
I was
acoustics
so
in there,
Yeah.
but it was just crack, 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 left and right, and people are just. I look at there's bodies all over the place, and Coach Jack is screaming,
It's just
blowing
like,
the whistle.
Again.
My
remember
knees were bloody from crawling off the ground and everything. I was like, oh my goodness.
I remember Coach Jackson pulling the defensive side and be like, do we want to do 2 more periods? And like Matt said, I was puking in the garbage during minutes when he asked. And everyone's like, I don't know. And I was like, all right. I'm good.
And for those wondering, you just saw Logan Dykstra's comment on play 38. Keenan Baynard had arguably one of the most impressive runs
Probably the greatest one of all time.
of all time that I've ever seen. And it was in a scrimmage. And he just absolutely juked somebody out of their shoes, made like 3 people fall. It was unbelievable.
Hates had him sliding.
Yeah.
Mailing was one of our – I think Mailing was one of the best linebackers that USF has ever had. And Keenan Baynard on play 38 juked him 3 different times.
Yes.
It was absolutely the
around.
most insane run I've ever seen in my entire life.
He was in a different dimension. It was
It
wild.
was play number 38 of like B-style practice.
Yeah.
Thinking about it now, I don't know what was more impressive, Keenan's run or the fact that Maylane was able to get juked out, get back up, attack, get juked out
3
again,
times.
get back up, and attack. That's how
And
fast
this wasn't a juke
wild.
out, Chad. That was like, you slide a little bit. Like on his side, got back up, sprinted, and caught him,
spun
and then
around.
got juked again.
It
was
was
insane.
literally did a 360.
Oh,
I don't know. If Kanan Bernard, he would be in the league right now if that one play was his career. I mean,
Yeah.
it was the most insane
Oh,
thing
yeah.
of all time.
He'd go down as the greatest running back in USF history
Seriously.
if we're judging by one play.
one play.
One play.
All right,
no
well,
rules.
Guys, we got to the game, right? So you guys had a tough week of practice.
Yep.
Like I said, Thanksgiving was that week, so you're away from your families, for Thanksgiving,
Mm-hmm.
which I think in your time at USF, that may have been the first time that we had done that. So that was probably pretty tough, whatever else. But going to the game, it's cold out. It snowed a bunch, I remember. They had to clear the snow off the field, off to the side. And, there's the piles of snow all the way around the Bob, the field at the Bob there. And, started off relatively strong. Got a Brett Garner field goal in the first quarter. So got off to a 3-0 lead at the end of the first. And then second quarter, Harding scored 2 touchdowns. Luke ran 1 in. So at halftime, it's 14-10. Come out in the third quarter, Brady Rose got a 12-yard touchdown catch. So it's 17-14 at the end of the third quarter. And then starting out in the fourth quarter, Kyle Gronewig caught a 28-yard touchdown catch. And so it's 24-14. USF's up. 10 minutes and 10 seconds left in the game. And so that's all she wrote. We'll go ahead and stop the show there. And
Yeah.
no.
It was just one of those games to where I think it could have went to either team. I mean, it was back and forth, and they had a couple good plays in the fourth quarter and took the lead. And it's just football.
To this day, I'm absolutely still shocked that their kicker made those kicks. If I'm not mistaken, on the season, he was like 3 of 7, and his longest field goal was like 25 yards. That
made a 47-yarder.
That field goal to tie the game was a duck off his foot and just snuck into the corner.
I have a story about that. I remember after the game, I was walking around the field, and I heard literally one of the coaches on the phone. He was like, if I would have told you, blah, 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 whatever that kicker name was, would hit this field goal to win this game, you would not have believed. He literally said that. Like, there's some things you can't do anything about it.
I remember watching it just graze over. It was just a duck. And I watched it graze over the crossbar, and I'm like, are you serious?
And it was one of those things, too, where they're at their last drive, they're throwing a few passes, and we have, tip ball or something like that. Somebody barely just misses a pick, and you got the feeling, you're like, oh, man, this almost feels like they're destined to hit this here at the end. But
Yeah.
Like all the stuff that went right earlier in the season just
Right.
wasn't going right. At
Yeah,
this point.
like Rich
Right.
in the air, it was like felt like maybe this isn't going to work out. Or, like,
Yeah. And it was weird. We were up, we were up 10, and it's a triple option team with, not very long left in the game. And you're kind of like, well, I mean, can they score quick enough to, come back? And I mean, they found a way to do it, but yeah, it was just.
Well,
Yeah.
Matt chimes in, Matt Witwicky, and says Mayling got called for a hit on the quarterback in the
Right.
fourth
Oh,
as he pitched to the halfback.
And that moved him 15 yards, and it was a good hit.
yeah. There were
terrible.
a couple of those. Yeah. I think I had a 3rd and 1 stop, and they gave them that. And that was a big deal there because we would have had field position. I mean, there were a couple of calls like that in the game that were just.
But like Chad said, I mean, we were getting there were some calls earlier in the year that worked out in our favor, and this game it just wasn't in our favor.
Yeah.
that game, I remember that game too. It was a dogfight, man.
Yeah.
Our defense, you guys played so well. Obviously the first half you're going to give up a little bit. You can practice against triple option all you want, but when you see it live and in color and it's running as efficiently as they're going to run it, you're going to give up a little bit. But I just remember them stepping up so well in the second half, and the Harding's defense too. That's one thing that's kind of got lost.
Yeah.
They were a salty defense.
Stellar defense.
Goodness, just watching them on film, they were really good. It was tough to get yards for both sides or both teams. It was just everything was earned in that game.
And we were joking a lot before about how hard that week practice was and how we were getting after it, and it was week 13 of the year. But it helped us. I mean, we came out and we hit them, and like you said, I mean, it was just a dog.
We weren't shocked by it.
I don't think that QB could honestly walk.
No.
And that was the whole game. It was like Rich said, it was just a dogfight, a bloodbath. It was.
I don't think he played next
a
week.
Hard-hitting game, and then the very next week when Harding played, was it Northwest Missouri?
Northwest. I would have loved to play those guys, man.
I wanted to play.
Yeah.
I wanted to shout at those guys.
Well, you could just tell how physical the game was the week before because they just got off the bus and.
I remember watching them play Northwestern on my computer, and they got they did not look like the same. They looked tired. They looked beat up. Like we destroyed them physically, and they were not ready for Northwestern. So Northwestern, send me that championship ring.
Yes.
Oh, well, so I think you guys mentioned, they kicked a 47-yard field goal with 6 seconds left in regulation to tie it up.
Unbelievable.
Insane.
And then Harding won the toss in overtime and elected to play defense. USF had a couple running plays, and on 3rd and 4th, kind of unfortunate, threw a pick.
Heck yeah.
And so that kind of ended our drive. And then our defense, held them strong, but their kicker was able to knock in a 35-yard in overtime. So
insane.
Crazy.
Yeah, I remember the play too. I'm pretty sure it was a play action pass. It was like a post right over the middle that we had hit so many times throughout the year, and one of their linebackers just read it really well. And he dropped. It was right place, right time. Picked the ball off, and my heart just sank. Yep. Man, it was, all the work we'd gotten so close to everything we wanted to do, and it was just right there with that play. It was kind of over for us.
Yeah. So one of the themes, we mentioned earlier was that it seemed like whenever the offense needed a big play earlier in the year, someone was able to make that big play. And Harding's defense, I mean, give them a lot of credit. They didn't really give up that big play during the game. Max, Luke, any of those guys that had been making those plays all season weren't able to bust through. So,
and that's not a discredit to those guys. It's just a credit to that defense again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well.
Really well prepared too.
Yeah. Well, I hate to end it on a downer. So what was you guys' favorite memories? I mean, that was obviously a special season. Yeah, many will argue. I still have the poster hanging on the wall behind me.
Yes.
Season. So I've got this is that's my senior year. That's me carrying the ball on my only time. And then I've got the 2016 poster up here. What do you guys remember? I mean, what will be your lasting memory from that season?
Oh man.
I'm going to throw out something a little different that I mean, like no one really knows, but that season I was going through a lot of stuff like ups and downs. And Matt Young actually, he talked to me a lot during the season and like just pulled me side to side. So 2016 to me was the year that Matt and I got really close. So that's what I took away from the 2016.
No
season.
joke. I don't even know how our counselors must have been talking. We literally had every class together that spring.
Yeah.
And the fall semester, we had like 80% of the classes. So,
and we
Sorry,
worked out at the same time off season too. There was not an hour during my spring that I wasn't with Matt Young. It was actually wild.
I hated that time.
That was really hurtful.
It's really hard to just pick any, defining moment of the season, to be honest, just because we were all together for so long. I mean, even thinking back, I have so many, just hilarious memories from like winter workouts and things like that from that year. Some of the beginning, preseason stuff we did too. There's just so many things you think back on it that were hilarious and just absolutely ridiculous. Like I remember Jess. So during winter workouts, you'd be put on a team and each team would have a captain. Jess was the captain for the team that I was on, and he couldn't do them because you had knee surgery, right? You were out for like 6-7 weeks. And so all of a sudden I'm the team captain. Everybody's kind of looking at me and I'm like, I don't know, guys, like just make it through this. You know what I mean? We'll figure it out as we go.
And Rich's pre-workout speeches, I mean, I loved my team. It was absolutely the best team ever. It was just.
I don't think it was best team ever because me and Brady kind of dominated.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, we were not good athletically. We were very run of the mill, but we could go for a very long time. I mean, just think about it too. When we had all the coup block moments,
Yeah,
we had all the celebratory handshakes we used to do too.
Mm-hmm.
There's just so much, and then even the walkthrough on Fridays when we used to do all the goofy stuff with the different people kicking off and returning punts and stuff. I mean, there's just so much you can think of. It's ridiculous. Oh yeah, there you go.
Did you really play safety on Thursday practices?
You got a pick too.
Yeah, it was a 7-on period. It's on my highlight tape for those that have seen that. But I just snuck over. It was one of the last weeks. So obviously toward the end of practice, coaches are letting some things slide. I forgot who it was. I was like, hey, get off the field, get off the field, get off the field. And I like ran onto it and took a safety spot. I can't remember who the quarterback was. But they saw me back there and they started laughing. They literally just, threw a toss up right to me. And then I returned it. So we were doing Skelly, 7-on-7. It was at like the plus 40-yard line. So we're going into the end zone that way. And I took the pick and I tried to return it all the way down to the other side. If you watch the clip on the highlight tape, there wasn't enough time on the clip. Like I took so long to get across the field, it cut off. And I remember when I got to the other side of the field, I tried to like punt the ball, and I thought I legitimately tore my hamstring when I tried to do it. I was so tired. I took like 15 minutes to walk back to practice, and like nobody even said anything. They're just like, Rich.
Yeah, it's Rich.
Chad, did you know what coup block was?
Do you guys want to talk about coup block?
Oh. Yeah, that was one of the like top memories I have.
Absolutely. So coup block was on Friday nights before away games.
Yeah.
We kind of had like almost like a panel of players that we had on there, and it started with Cam Ostrom, right? Cam started the whole thing.
I think so. Yeah.
So in 20,
Gary Brady, Devin Flesher was who originally started it back in the day.
And so basically it was almost like a mini talk show with them. They'd bring guests in, you'd have different activities we'd do and things like that. And by the end of it, it just kind of turned into a riot. Everybody just doing different things, and we'd interview people, we'd interview coaches too. So that was always, for me, that was kind of what kept us from getting really like caught up in the pressure of moments before games. Mm-hmm. We'd have that the night before and everybody kind of relax and, they're all laughing and giggling and joking. So it's kind of comedic relief that everybody needed, I felt like.
And to be honest, Chad, as the host of Coup Block, I was more nervous about how Coup Block was going to go that week than the game. Trying to figure out
the tone. That set the tone. But like that speaks volumes though to the coaching staff just letting us be us and like, being loose and like just being a family and having fun. And like that goes a long way to build camaraderie and like build that togetherness that leads to championship teams and things like that. I mean, just that kind of freedom to do our stupid stuff that we love to do, like keep our mind off the pressure, like everybody said. But
kind of random, but does anybody remember the Friday speech where Coach Stuger could not pronounce epitome?
yes, he was reading a text.
He was reading a text from somebody, and he kept saying epitome, and he said it 4 or 5 times.
And then
we were all trying to keep. And in the same speech, instead of saying reckless abandon, he said we need to play with a restless abandon. And I just remember, I remember nothing else from that speech. Absolutely nothing. Like Coach Stewart had a bunch of really good speeches, a bunch of great speeches during halftime and everything. But that, for me, that's the most memorable speech he ever had when he kept saying epitome. And when his start was like, you could see in his eyes, he knew he wasn't quite pronouncing the word right. He was like, epitome, and was look around like, and we're like, no, that's not right, Coach. That's not right.
Oh, this just came to me. One of my favorite memories. Remember when, I don't know if it was a senior year. Remember when Coach Stuger, he played a prank on all of us. So we had a meeting, and in the meeting it was like, obviously no phones in the meeting rooms. And so him and Cliff Redmond was on this prank. Was it Cliff? I think it might have been Cliff. Where Cliff was on the phone, and Stuger like freaked out, grabbed his phone, smashed it on the floor. Like he played it really well. Was really pissed. Cliff out the room, and everybody was looking around like, "Whoa,
yeah,
what? Like, what just happened? Did he really just smash his phone?" And then he came back, was like, blah blah. I'm like, oh my god, he got all of us. Like, yeah, that's one of my favorite memories. I remember that. And Cliff also played that really well too. I'm like, wait, because I know Cliff and I just let someone just smash his phone like that.
Yeah, there's
I think
so
my
many
favorite,
memories.
well, personal and then just like football related. Personal, there may or may not have been an underground Fight Club event that happened with the panel members here, and things, got a little out of hand. A little blood was shed, and then we had to come up with an excuse, like why there's blood when we show up on Monday to practice. Like what just happened, and but just moments like that, like we were talking about different game scenarios and stats that happened and different moments that I remember, but just the time with these dudes is what I remember the most. But from a football standpoint, it was nice the 2016 season to finally reach that point, because 2012 we were new. 2013 we were like 6-5.
Yeah, it was up and down.
2014 we had a stellar team, but kind of got snubbed a little in the playoffs. 2015 was down a little bit, pretty solid. Didn't finish like we wanted. But 2016 we were able to put it all together. So that was a special moment for all of us.
Yeah, great group of guys. Lots of fun.
Who's still the Gator?
Who's still the Gator?
That
the chair throwing incident of 2016. A couple things went wrong in this scenario. So we had a junior college transfer O-lineman named Durant, who is absolutely hysterical. One of my favorite people on that team.
Yeah.
His famous line is, "I don't freaking get it," because he often did not get many things. But anyway, when we had new guys get in, we'd always put them up on this. Like when we'd eat meals during team camp, we'd put them up on this stand, and they'd sit there. We'd make them do something, whether it was sing a song, whatever it was. So somebody pointed to me, and Durant didn't know my name yet, and we had been together for a while now. It's like 2 weeks into fall camp, and obviously we're in every meeting together, every practice together, and upon realizing this, I immediately stood up from my chair and I just launched it like 20 yards across the bubble. Little did I know, A, Coach Mathers was directly behind me, and B, the kind gentleman who had donated the chairs was also in attendance for whatever reason.
What?
So a lot of things went wrong in that scenario.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so needless to say, after the next practice, I had quite a bit of up downs to do. And it was funny because, like, I had to do 5 up downs for every yard line, And at one point, it just took me obnoxiously long because I mean I'm out of shape and I'm like, you know, I'm an O-lineman at this point, so I'm doing up downs. And Mathers realizes this, and he's like, we get just past the 50-yard line. He's like, "There's other ways to be funny, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, there is." And he's like, "Good," and just walked away, and that was it. But
That's awesome.
from then on, it was kind of I think that was in 2015. That was the year before, because then in 2016, there was a couple times where I like picked up the chair and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna throw it," but then we never did. And then you think about too, fall camp. We had all the
fall camp, so much stuff.
Talent shows. What do we call them again? Talent shows.
Yeah, talent show.
We had all the rookie shows. We had that run. Oh, there's just so much we can go into that it's like, oh man,
just fall camp, and our stadium's like away from campus, so like we would spend all day out there together, and like that's when the most like bonding would happen. And the fact that we like didn't want to make the trip back home to like where we lived at, like, and just stayed out there. I mean, that was huge too.
Yeah,
but
what is it, like 4.5 miles or so?
Yeah, it's a good hoof.
And we also had to be ready in case somebody stole the gator again. We had to.
Yes.
That's
too funny.
We could probably go
I
into
really
that.
appreciate you guys taking some time to join me here tonight. These stories are phenomenal. I wish we could probably spend another hour and a half here talking and just telling stories, goofing around and stuff. But maybe we'll do a follow-up episode sometime in the future. But go ahead and stick around for a couple minutes, guys. But we're going to end the live right now. Thanks to everyone for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode.